Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. Today I want to look at how France's failures in West Africa became so evident. France has faced several significant failures and setbacks in West Africa in recent years, particularly in terms of its military, political, and also diplomatic engagement. It is important for us to look at this into context. First, the military failure that France faced in the continent of Africa. You're talking about Operations Barkhane, launched in 2014 to fight jihadist groups across the Sahel region, mainly Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mauritania, and Niger. It was heavily criticized. For example, there was limited effectiveness. Despite years of diplomacy and deployment, the jihadist group remained active and even expanded. The civilian casualties was another concern. France's airstrikes sometimes killed civilians and also fueling resentment across the region. The dependency was a big problem. Critics argue it encouraged local governments to rely too heavily on France's military support. If you look at other withdrawals as well as a failure in 2022, the withdrawal, according to experts, after years of deteriorating relations and rising anti-French sentiment, France pulled out its troops. The military government in Mali accused France of neocolonialism behavior and turned to Russia's organizations and also, more importantly, for Russians for support in several areas. Another area very important that France lose control in terms of its own influence. The anti-French sentiment, the public opinion in several countries had turned sharply against France, driven by, for example, a perception of neocolonialism and interference in local politics, disappointment in France's own failures to bring peace and stability across the region, misinformation campaigns, sometimes, according to experts, that were pushed by Russia. However, the shifting alliances across the continent of Africa is beginning to be evident. Countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and also Niger have recently pivoted towards new partners, particularly Russia. France has also lost political strategic grounds to other powers. These are very important aspects where France continued to lose its focus on the diplomatic setback that France faced. For example, coups and suspension. France struggled to respond effectively to a series of military coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Its calls for a return to civilian rule were often ignored, and French diplomats were expelled from the region. Injection of troops. France also was another very important area where France faced a lot of backlash. French troops were forced to leave not only Mali, but also Burkina Faso and Niger in 2023, further weakening France's regional presence. If you look at the economic failures of France, economically and cultural pushback that France faced, call for revisiting or ending the CFA franc, a currency linked to the euro and backed by French treasury, has grown loud. Critics say it symbolizes continued economic control by France. French language and culture influence have also come under fire in some countries as part of broader decolonization narrative. As we all have seen, some countries have replaced French regards to very important aspect in terms of their own development. Let me know in the comment section what you think regards to this particular issue regards France's own failures across the region, if France is to be blamed, and what do you think France should have done? And even before the Chinese and the Russians became very engaged in the continent of Africa, do you think France would have done more than what is done so far? I want to thank you for watching. Leave me a comment. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.